introduce you to the work that I do through Letsatsi Healing Space. Letsatsi meaning sun, for those of you who don't know, and I chose this name because it reminded me of a very magical time in my journey. And it was my second climb up Mount Kilimanjaro, and we had been climbing for about 2-3 days. We were about probably 6 or 7 hours away from the actual summit, and I was quite behind the rest of my group. And because it was my second climb, I was determined to get to Mount Uhuru. And just before we reached a certain point, my guide turned to me and said, "Put your bag down, take your sunglasses out, and turn around." And as I did that, I witnessed the most breathtaking sunrise of my entire life. It was so magical that I didn't even think of pulling out my camera, but all I could do was just give gratitude and thanks. And my guide reminded me that, people who live in the city, we're so consumed about everyday life that we forget to notice the small miracles that God has put before us. I want to say maybe small, but the miracles that God or your Creator has put before us. And so whatever you go through, whatever you overcome, whatever you're pushing through, the sun will always set in the day and you have a chance to start over. And so that's when the idea came from for Letsatsi Healing Space. So in 2020, when the world was going on lockdown, we weren't quite sure if we were going to make it out of that. I was very fortunate and privileged to have a roof over my head, to have a loving partner that we could cry to, release, and share our vulnerabilities and worries with. But I also found myself, like millions and billions of other people in the world, slipping into deep depression. And during this time, I realized that there were a lot of other challenges that I hadn't really pushed through 100%. And that's a problem with trauma, that's a problem with pain, is that you learn to live with it. It never disappears. But I realized there was a lot of other things that I hadn't processed. And so I went into serious reflection. And I thought, okay, in the past, what have I done when faced various challenges or obstacles? In 2016, when my acting career came to an end because I spoke out against sexual harassment and other issues, I used what I had around me to move on and use my resources to try and help other people within the industry. Being in the activism space for at the time, about 16, 17 years, I was able to use my skills as a counselor, as an activist, to work through that and to help people and to work through what I needed to work through. But the lessons learned moving back to 2020 is that I'd focused so much on other spaces and other people that I didn't really put a lot of attention to myself, and I realized, okay, I need to work on that healing, but also work on healing that I can do something to make a living, because the other was taken away. And this is what made me push into and start Letsatsi Healing Space. And the first program that I curated and put together is a combination of that. So using my counseling, and during this time I did refresher courses. I did refresher courses on PTSD, sexual abuse, trauma-informed care, trauma debriefing, and fused it together with the course and the knowledge and the structure that I learned through my life coaching course. And so through Letsatsi Healing Space, there are 3 main packages that we offer. The first is what I call the validation program, and that is your regular counseling. And depending on what my resources are or the amount of clients I have, the capacity I have, this is often offered on a pro bono basis. So the validation program focuses on counseling, looking at my scope of practice and my expertise of what I've trained in and also being within the activism space. Within the validation program, obviously depending on resources, we also like to offer court preparation, which is something I learned when I trained through Power, People Opposing Women Abuse, way back in 2004, and that is just trying to prepare victims and survivors for the court process. So it's not legal advice, but it's what to expect of going into the court, that you could be called at 8:30, but your file may not be called at all and it could be postponed. What does a court structure look like? Once again, if we have the capacity or resources, actually accompany the person, because that level of intimidation of walking down those cold court halls and sometimes having to face your perpetrators, and if in many cases there's a level of intimidation, how to get through that. So it's providing that support. On the legal side, we're not a law firm, we've never pretended to be one, but we do offer referrals to pro bono law spaces and of course other legal agencies and attorneys who we've worked with and we trust, and we comfortable in passing that our clients on to that. The second program that I've curated is the Discovery Program. And this is a life coaching package, which is tailor-made per client. So if your needs are trying to find a way where you can get a promotion at work, we work through that. You've come out of a nasty breakup or a divorce and you're trying to put your life back together, that is something that we can work with. If you are looking for a new career, any space that you feel your life has reached a dormant state, you need assistance with, this is something that we can look at. And as I said, each client we tailor-make a program for you to reach those specific goals. Understanding what short-term goals are, what your long-term goals are, realistically, and also tapping into what we call the low-hanging fruits of areas in your life that you've forgotten about, that you're really good at, other skills, other crafts. For those of you in South Africa, we know that Cyril's economy is not that great, so we've got to really dabble in so many other areas in order to make a living. And then the final program that I also offer and I've curated is called Feel the Sun Again. And this is exactly that. It's about you finding your life again so you can bask and you can feel the beauty and the power of the sun. And this is a combination between counseling and life coaching. And why I came up with this is that during the times where, for instance, as I mentioned before, where I lost my career, as much as I needed counseling, I also needed a plan to figure out what my next steps were. And so this is tapping into finding healing methods that work for you in a combo program that works on what your next step is, what your next goals are, working together. Because remember, counseling and healing doesn't take away the pain. It's just about learning to live with that trauma. It's about finding coping mechanisms to work through. A lot of the time, if sexual harassment or abuse happens on set or at work, the victims and survivors are forced to actually work with their perpetrators. So it's about working through that, knowing what their rights are legally. And then also, if it's time for them to move on or to step on or start their own business, then it's stepping up those plans. So those are the three major programs that I do work on. I love learning, and I'm working towards many other qualifications. And once we've got those, then I will share, because remember, your journey, don't share it too much with too many people. Not everybody's happy for your success. So if any of this interests you, if you see that there's a possible collaboration, because it's also about synergies, please give me a call. At the bottom of this message, you've got my website, you've also got our WhatsApp number, we've got the email address. Let's have a conversation. If you're looking for a package, you're not quite sure if life coaching is for you, let's set up a discovery call. If you further on, I'm going to do a brief video on what a discovery call is and what you can expect from that. And if you don't have a synergy, that's also okay. You know, finding your right coach is something very, very personal. And so if the synergy isn't right, then that's okay. If you're not ready to do the work, then don't step into the space also. Because it takes a lot of reflections. I incorporate a lot of my healing techniques, so there's breath work. Sometimes we bring in a bit of laughter therapy. Services are also offered either online or in person. Obviously from the country, I do prefer in person because then I can incorporate a little bit more of my healing techniques of the breath work, the stretch work. Sometimes we can go out, sometimes we can do a session out after a hike, whatever it is. But I also do offer online coaching and I have clients from all over the world which have benefited from it. So yeah, I don't mind working against different time zones, and I find that challenge rather interesting. So yeah, if you think that we could work together, if you think I could learn from you or you could learn from me, let's have this conversation.